everyone. I'm Catherine Martin, founder of Quiet Time Ministries. And every day, I have the privilege of meeting alone with the one who actually created me, who made the world. His name is Jesus, and He is King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And this is my quiet time. One of the things I love about reading and studying the Bible is the hope the Lord gives me in who He is, what He does, and what He says. Again and again, I discover something new about Him, and it causes me to love and trust Him more and more. As I have been living in the book of Exodus, I saw something very powerful about the Lord near the beginning of the book. To give a very brief background, an Israelite man named Joseph was sold into slavery by his brothers because they were jealous. Well, God had His hand on Joseph, and through many amazing life circumstances, ultimately brought him to Egypt. And he became the most powerful man in all of Egypt, second only to Pharaoh. Joseph reconciled with his brothers later, and they all ended up living in Egypt. Well, as time went on, they multiplied, flourished there, until there were hundreds of thousands of sons of Israel there in Egypt. The day came when the Pharaoh no longer knew about Joseph and became afraid of the large numbers of Israelites. So he and the Egyptians forced them into slave labor. And we learn in Exodus 2, starting at verse 23, that the people of Israel cried out to God. And so I want to read this starting at Exodus 2, verse 23. It says, "Now it came about in the course of those many days that the king of Egypt died. And the sons of Israel sighed because of the bondage. And they cried out, and their cry for help because of their bondage rose up to God. So God heard their groaning, and God remembered His covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. God saw the sons of Israel, and God took notice of them." The first thing I want to say is that when you are in any circumstance, any captivity, any challenge, there is one place to run. Run to God. We learn here in Exodus that we are not alone. It says God heard their groaning. God took notice of them. God remembered His covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He saw the sons of Israel. He took notice of them. You need to know that God always hears, understands, and knows you. God is with you. God is always working, though you may think you are all alone and that no one sees or hears. In these verses, we see that God took notice of the sons of Israel. It can also be translated that God knew the sons of Israel. And that word for took notice is yada. And it's the same word used in Jeremiah 9, 23 and 24, exhorting us to know our God. The important truth here is that He yadas or knows you before you ever come to yada or know Him. He is the God who knows you, the God who initiates. He is near, not distant, personal, not impersonal, and caring and compassionate, not ruthless. I share this because when you are in the deeps and extremes, the story told to your mind that is a lie is that God is not there. God doesn't care. What can God possibly do? Here in the most extreme case, we see that God is going to do something. When God remembers, it means He pays attention, and it results in action. Well, we see as we continue to read on that God took action, all right. He caused a bush to burn in the desert, where a man named Moses was shepherding sheep on the west side of the wilderness. Today, the important thing for us to remember is that God knows us before we know Him. And our knowing of God begins with Him knowing us. Thank you, Lord, today that you know us, that you see us, that you love us. And that's my quiet time for this week. God bless you as you continue on in the great adventure of knowing Him.